In the last episode, we cracked open the lover archetype. Today, we stay in that same quadrant, but we shift the motivation. Let's dive into the details of the citizen, which historically has also been called the everyman or every person. The citizen belongs to the foster belonging quadrant. All three of the archetypes in this quadrant are wired to create connection, but each one creates it through a different emotional mechanism. The lover creates connection through intimacy and depth, the feeling of being cherished. The jester creates connection through humor and shared joy, the feeling of being in on the joke. The citizen, though, creates connection through recognition, through inclusion, through the simple, profound feeling of standing among others. If the lover says, "I see you," and the jester says, "You're one of us," the citizen says, "You belong here, just as you are." That's a psychological move that doesn't require beauty, nor does it require humor. It requires honesty. It requires the brand to stand beside the patron instead of above them. And that's harder to pull off than it sounds, because the citizen is the most misunderstood archetype possibly in the entire framework. So what motivates this archetype? Many strategists and brand leaders miss the mark with the citizen. They think the citizen means average, plain, beige, vanilla. The default setting for any brand that basically doesn't want to commit a stronger position. And so maybe they reach for it because it feels safe. And what they end up with is building a brand with no edges, no opinions, and no real reason to be remembered. It's the epitome of spending your time fitting in will have you wasting your budget to stand out. Or maybe they just steer clear of the citizen because it seems too boring and uninteresting. And what they end up doing is adopting another archetypal driver that loses the notable impact a citizen brand really could bring to the table. Because the citizen is not about being average. It's about being real. The citizen is built on one of the oldest, deepest human drives we have: belonging. Anthropologists have studied this forever. Every society in human history has organized itself into stable groups built on shared experience, shared labor, shared values. We essentially are tribal animals at our core. Our ancestors survived because they belonged. The ones who didn't just didn't make it. And that's not conjecture or rhetoric. That's evolutionary psychology. Belonging isn't just a preference, it's a biological requirement. In modern research, Roy Baumeister and Mark Leary published the foundational work on this in 1995, The Need to Belong, arguing that belongingness is a fundamental human motivation on par with food and safety. Neuroscience has since confirmed. Studies by Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA showed that the experience of social rejection activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. Same brain region, same response. When a person feels excluded, they hurt the way they hurt when something stings. That is how deep this archetype can run. Layering in social identity theory, Henri Tajfel and John Turner in 1979, they demonstrated that human identity is not built in isolation. We define ourselves through the groups we associate with. We are who we belong to. The citizen archetype lives directly on top of this finding. It's the archetype that says, you don't need to earn your place here. You already have one. This is why the citizen sits inside of the foster belonging quadrant. The whole quadrant exists to satisfy the human need for emotional connection. Each archetype sharpens that mission slightly differently. The citizen's method is the most foundational of the three because it removes barriers, it dissolves hierarchies, and it says everyone is welcome, and it truly means it. The citizen's psychological promise is simple. You are not alone, and you don't have to be exceptional to be valued. That promise is rare. And in a culture that increasingly sorts people by status, performance, and visibility, it is more valuable than ever. So let's go through the 5 strengths of the citizen archetype. Starting with number 1, relatability. This is the citizen's signature move. The brand speaks the patron's language. It looks like the patron's life. It removes the intimidating gloss that most brands smear on top of their communications. There's no aspirational distance, no corporate polish that makes the patron feel like an outsider looking in. The citizen brand feels like a peer, not a performer. And because it doesn't try to be elite or edgy or exclusive, it broadens its appeal naturally. When the world feels chaotic, people gravitate towards what feels familiar. Relatability is both a differentiator and an invitation. The second strength is resilience. This one surprises people. The citizen isn't dramatic. It doesn't reinvent itself every 2 years to chase a trend. Its resilience comes from consistency, showing up the same way over and over until the patron stops questioning whether the brand will be there tomorrow. This kind of steadiness becomes a competitive advantage in volatile categories. When everyone else is panicking, the citizen is still open, still serving, still recognizable, and patrons trust that. The third strength is empathy. Citizen brands listen more than they talk. They design experiences around real human need instead of marketing sophistication. Their customer service doesn't sound like a script. It sounds like a person. When something goes wrong, they don't deflect. They don't hide behind policy. They acknowledge the human on the other side. That empathy becomes the connective tissue. It's the difference between feeling handled and feeling heard. The fourth strength is authenticity. This one's tough. The citizen doesn't oversell. It doesn't overdramatize. It doesn't pretend to be more glamorous or more disruptive or more visionary than it actually is. Its promises are realistic. Its tone is grounded. And in a landscape full of brands inflating themselves, that simplicity reads as integrity. Patrons trust what feels true. The citizen's humility is quiet superpower. The fifth, and by no means the only, but the fifth strength that I want to call out is community building. Citizen brands build communities better than almost any other archetype because they don't create hierarchies inside them. There's no inner circle, no VIP tier, no status gate. Every patron is on a level playing field. That egalitarian posture attracts people who value camaraderie over clout, and the community becomes self-sustaining because the brand isn't demanding loyalty, it's just acting like home, and people show up for that. So those are the 5 major strengths. Let's talk about the shadow side, the weaknesses and the challenges that, citizen brands are going to bring to the table. Every archetype has them, and the citizen has 5 worth flagging. These are the ones that quietly kill citizen brands while leadership thinks everything is okay. The first watch out is mediocrity. The citizen's biggest strength becomes its biggest threat. Universal appeal can slide into universal blandness. When the brand is so worried about alienating someone that it refuses to take any position at all, the messaging loses sharpness, the visual identity loses impact, the brand blends into its category. And, patrons may react well to that, but they're not going to love it. And they will not advocate for it. They will not defend it when something newer comes along. Relatability does not require blandness, but a lot of citizen brands forget that and they die soft, slow deaths because of it. The second watch out is over-identification. The citizen mirrors the patron in many ways. That's the move, that's its choice. But when it mirrors too closely, it stops leading. It becomes reactive. Every decision is filtered through what will the customer think until the brand has no point of view of its own. It chases sentiment instead of shaping. A citizen brand needs empathy paired with backbone. Mirroring becomes connection. Over-mirroring erases identity. The third watch-out is risk aversion. Citizen brands prioritize stability. That's a strength until it becomes a cage. They start defaulting to what has already worked. They watch competitors innovate while they linger in the familiar. Internally, Employees stop pitching ambitious ideas because they sense leadership won't approve them or even give them the time of day. The brand calcifies. It feels grounded from the inside and outdated from the outside. The citizen has to remember that risk, when it serves the patron, is compatible with stability. Refusing to evolve is not loyalty to the patron, it's negligence. The fourth call out here is lack of distinction. This is the cousin of mediocrity, but it shows up slightly differently. Citizen brands often lean on the same universal values: quality, fairness, community. And those words could appear on any competitor's website. The brand fails to claim a piece of territory that's uniquely its own. The patron likes it. The patron also can tell you why they choose it over 3 other options. Distinction is not the opposite of relatability. The citizen must find what makes its worldview specific, not generic. The fifth one that I want to call out is inertia. This one is definitely a quiet killer. Citizen brands sometimes move so slowly that the brand stops moving at all. The familiar becomes the comfortable becomes the predictable becomes invisible. And then patrons start to look at alternatives and shift that way. They feel fresher maybe. Not because they wanted to leave, but because nothing really pulled them back in. Stability without movement is not stability. It's stalling out. And that last word, stall, is the one to remember. Most citizen brands don't fail in a seismic explosion. Instead, they stall out and lose steam until a newer brand renders them irrelevant. So how do citizen brands play out in real life, in real brands that are out there? I've pulled together 3 citizen brands that I think are worth studying. The first one is Zoom. Zoom is the citizen archetype at its most utilitarian. It became essential during the most isolating period of modern life, the pandemic, because it did one thing brilliantly. It brought people together. No sophisticated branding, no aspirational positioning, just a clear, simple promise. Open the app, see your people, feel less alone. Zoom's design philosophy is pure citizen, easy, intuitive, not intimidating, deliberately stripped of its barriers. It removed the friction between people who needed to be together. That is citizen behavior. That is belonging delivered through accessibility. The second brand is the Home Depot. Home Depot is the citizen as basically a community partner. The brand's entire premise is that you, the patron, are capable of doing the work. You don't need to be a contractor. You don't need to be an expert. You can repair your own deck. You can paint your own bathroom. You can build the thing. That message reflects the citizen's deepest belief that capability is shared, not exclusive. Then walk into the store. The stores feel navigable. The employees offer guidance without condescension. It's not a place that performs expertise at you. It's a place that participates in your project. And that posture, the partner, not authority, is the citizen archetype operationalized. Southwest Airlines is the third one. And of course, citizen brands are all over the place. These are just 3 that I picked out. Southwest is the citizen as a corporate culture. In a category that has spent decades figuring out new ways to make passengers feel like cargo, Southwest decided to treat people like people. No assigned seating until recently, no layered class systems, transparent pricing, no baggage fees as a hidden charge. Crew members who joke around on the intercom to bring a lightheartedness to the whole cabin. The whole experience is built on citizens' commitment to fairness, equality, and the shared experience. They don't try to impress, they try to welcome. That distinction is the whole archetype in 2 sentences. So here are some takeaways for you as you evaluate your brand or just the citizen archetype in general. The citizen archetype is not for brands that don't know what else to be. It's for brands that have made a deliberate choice to stand beside their patron instead of above them, to dissolve hierarchy, to consistently deliver, to make belonging easy. When it's done well, the citizen becomes irreplaceable, not because it's exciting, but because it feels like home, and that is so valuable. When it's done lazily, the citizen becomes wallpaper, bland, beige paint, forgettable, not worth looking at. The line between the two is opinion, backbone. The willingness to be specific about which kind of belonging you're offering and to whom. Citizen brands that commit to that specificity build categories. Citizen brands that hide behind universality just basically get forgotten. So that's the citizen. Stand behind the patron, mean it, and don't confuse staying still with being basically steady. As always, please rate this 5 stars, subscribe, and follow where you can. If you get a chance, consider leaving a comment or two. This really helps lift the show and thinking contained herein to the top of the feed. So, until next time, keep charging ahead. Cheers.